The wind carries whispers across an endless savanna. Tall grass sways in the dying light, and somewhere in the distance, footsteps crunch against ancient earth. The sound is deliberate, purposeful, but not alone. Listen. Can you hear it? That rhythm in the darkness? It's not just one set of feet moving through the night. It's many. Different gaits, different weights, different species. Fire crackles somewhere beyond the horizon. Orange light flickers against cave walls that have witnessed secrets we've forgotten. And in that dancing glow, shadows move. Shadows, with tools in their hands and thoughts behind their eyes. What if I told you we were never meant to be alone? For most of human history, we weren't the only ones looking up at the stars and wondering what lay beyond. We weren't the only ones burying our dead with flowers, painting stories on stone walls, or gathering around fires to share the day's hunt. We were just one of many. 8 distinct species of humans once walked this earth. 8 different ways of being intelligent, of being alive, of being human. They built tools we're still discovering. They survived ice ages that would have crushed civilizations. They loved, they fought, they dreamed, and for hundreds of thousands of years they shared this planet with us. But tonight, as you sit in your warm home, surrounded by the glow of screens and the hum of modern life, you are utterly, completely alone. Not just you, all of us. Our entire species stands solitary on a planet that once echoed with the voices of our cousins. The question that haunts the darkness is not just what happened to them. It's deeper than that, more chilling. The question is, why are we the only ones left? Was it chance? Was it skill? Or was it something far darker? Something written in our very nature that made us the survivors while all others faded into the fossil record like ghosts in stone? The embers of their fires went cold long ago. Their footprints have been buried under millennia of earth and ice. But their story, our story, is written in fragments of bone and flakes of worked stone scattered across continents. Tonight, we're going to follow those footprints backward through time. We're going to light those ancient fires again and sit beside our forgotten relatives. We're going to witness the rise and fall of entire ways of being human. And by the end, you'll understand why the silence that surrounds us now is so profound, why the loneliness of our species runs deeper than we ever imagined. Because once upon a time, not so long ago in the grand sweep of history, we had family, we had neighbors, we had rivals, we had others. The fire crackles lower now, casting longer shadows. And in those shadows, shapes begin to emerge from the mists of deep time. 2 million years ago, in the heart of what we now call Africa, small hands grasped rough stones and began to chip away the edges. The sound echoed across ancient valleys. Tap, tap, tap. The first deliberate rhythm of human intelligence shaping the world. Meet Homo habilis. The toolmakers, the handy ones. Picture them, barely 4 feet tall with long arms and curious eyes that sparkled with an intelligence the world had never seen. They didn't know they were making history with every strike of stone against stone. They only knew that the sharp edge they created could cut through hide, crack open bones, and reveal the rich marrow that would fuel larger brains in the generations to come. But they were just the beginning. As the millennia rolled past like slow thunder, others emerged from evolution's forge. Homo erectus, the wanderers, stood taller and dreamed of horizons. They were the first to look beyond Africa's borders and whisper, "What lies out there?" Their footprints stretch across continents now. From the caves of Georgia to the islands of Java, they carried fire in their hands like a sacred gift, and wherever they went, darkness retreated. Imagine standing in their camps at night. The flame dances between cupped palms, casting golden light on faces that are almost but not quite like ours. Their foreheads slope backward, their jaws thrust forward, but their eyes hold the same wonder you see in a child discovering the world for the first time. They cooked their meat and told stories in languages we'll never understand. They cared for their sick and buried their dead. And when the stars came out, they looked up and wondered. Then came the Neanderthals, our closest relatives, our almost twins. They emerged from the mists of Europe like living sculptures, built for a world of ice and stone. Broader shoulders, barrel chests, muscles like twisted rope beneath skin that had never known the African sun. Their brains were larger than ours, packed with intelligence that could track mammoth across frozen tundra and craft spears with deadly precision. Listen to the whisper of their world, snow crunching underfoot as a hunting party follows fresh tracks. The snap of branches as they build shelter against howling winds. The soft murmur of voices around fires that burned in caves where their children played with carved bone toys and learned the songs of their ancestors. They weren't primitive. They were magnificent. In the mysterious mountains of Siberia lived the Denisovans, the ghost people. We know them only from fragments from DNA whispers in the blood of modern populations scattered across Asia. They were the high-altitude specialists, adapted to thin air and bitter cold. Picture them scaling mountain paths that would challenge modern climbers, their lungs pulling oxygen from air so thin it would leave us gasping. Homo floresiensis dwelt on distant islands, the hobbits who stood 3 feet tall but wielded tools with the skill of giants. They shared their tropical paradise with dragons, real dragons, monitor lizards the size of crocodiles, and somehow thrived for hundreds of thousands of years. In the caves of Spain, Homo antecessor painted the first human art, leaving handprints on stone walls like signatures across time. I was here, each print declares. I thought, I felt, I was. Homo naledi emerged from the depths of South African caves, their story so recent we're still learning to read it. They buried their dead in chambers deep underground, carrying bodies through passages so narrow that only they could navigate them. Why? What drove them to honor their deceased in darkness so complete? Each species found their own answer to the question of what it means to be human. Each carved their own path through the wilderness of intelligence and consciousness. They made music from hollow bones, painted stories on cave walls, and gazed at the same moon that hangs in our sky tonight. But here's what sends chills down the spine. For vast stretches of time, they weren't alone. They knew about each other. Homo Erectus camps flickered with firelight while Neanderthal hunting parties tracked game just valleys away. Denisovans carved tools from mountain stone while Homo sapiens, our ancestors, began their own journey out of Africa. The stage was set for the greatest drama in our planet's history. Not one human species reaching for intelligence and consciousness, but eight. 8 different experiments in what it means to think, to dream, to be. And then one by one, 7 of them began to disappear. The ice came like a slow apocalypse. Glaciers crept down from the north, mile-thick walls of frozen time that devoured forests and drove the great herds south. Rivers became ribbons of ice. Coastlines vanished beneath sheets of white that stretched beyond horizons. The world itself was shrinking, and in that compression, something inevitable began to happen. The scattered children of evolution were pushed together. Imagine the first encounter. A Neanderthal hunting party cresting a ridge at dawn, spears in hand, following the scent of fresh kill on the wind. Below them, smoke rises from a valley they've never seen occupied before. Strange voices carry on the morning air, not quite familiar but not entirely foreign either. They are looking at us, Homo sapiens, the newcomers from Africa. Both groups freeze. Recognition flickers in 8 sets of eyes. The terrible electric realization that they are staring at another kind of human. Similar enough to understand, different enough to fear. What happens next has echoed through our DNA for 50,000 years. Sometimes, it was wonder. Young Neanderthal women might have looked across fire-lit caves at the darker skin and narrower faces of Homo sapiens men and felt something stir. Curiosity, attraction, the pull of the exotic. Children were born from these unions, carrying the genetic legacy of both species forward into an uncertain future. Sometimes it was cooperation. Archaeological sites tell stories of shared hunts, of technologies traded like gifts between species. Neanderthal techniques for working stone appear in Homo sapiens settlements. Our methods for making fire show up in their caves. For brief, shining moments, humanity was truly plural, but sometimes it was darker. Bones bear witness to violence. Cut marks on skulls suggest something unspeakable. One human species hunting another. Was it war? Competition for dwindling resources? Or something more primal? The territorial rage that flares when two apex predators meet in the same hunting ground. The ice didn't care about their politics. It kept coming, grinding continents smooth and pushing every living thing toward the equator. Mammoth herds that had fed generations disappeared overnight. Familiar hunting grounds became graveyards of ice. The abundance that had allowed 8 human species to flourish simultaneously simply vanished. In caves across Europe, Neanderthal populations began to dwindle. Not all at once. This wasn't extinction by meteor strike or volcanic catastrophe. It was slower, more insidious. A hunting party that never returned. Children who didn't survive the winter. Elders who took ancient knowledge with them to cold graves. Meanwhile, Homo sapiens adapted with unsettling efficiency. We learned their techniques, improved their tools, and spread into territories they'd abandoned. We were like water, flowing into every empty space, filling every vacant niche. The Denisovans retreated higher into their mountains, leaving only genetic echoes in the blood of Tibetan populations who still carry their high-altitude adaptations. Homo erectus, the great wanderers, found themselves with nowhere left to wander. One by one, the fires went out. One by one, the voices fell silent. And in that growing silence, a terrible question began to form. Were we simply the luckiest of the 8 human species? The most adaptable? Or were we something else entirely? In a cave in Gibraltar 40,000 years ago, the last campfire of the Neanderthals burns low. Picture it. Orange flames dancing against limestone walls covered in handprints. Some large, some small, some belonging to children who will never grow old enough to leave prints of their own. The smoke curls upward through cracks in the stone, carrying with it the dreams and stories of an entire way of being human. Around that fire sit perhaps a dozen individuals, the last of their kind. They don't know it yet, but they are the final chapter in a story that began 2 million years ago. Their broad shoulders cast long shadows, and their deep-set eyes reflect flames that have burned in caves like this for hundreds of thousands of years. Across the landscape, not far away, other fires burn. Smaller perhaps, but somehow brighter, more numerous. These belong to us, Homo sapiens, and our flames are spreading like a constellation across Europe while theirs grow dim and scatter. This is the moment, the final act in the greatest competition our planet has ever witnessed. But what happened here in these last encounters between Neanderthals and modern humans? The evidence whispers conflicting stories, each more haunting than the last. Theory 1, we killed them. Not in a single genocidal war, but through 1,000 small conflicts over resources, territory, and survival. Archaeological sites show evidence of violence, cut marks on bones that speak of dark intentions. Perhaps intelligence alone wasn't enough to prevent the oldest story in nature. 2 species competing for the same resources, and only one emerging victorious. Imagine Neanderthal elders watching from hidden places as Homo sapiens hunting parties move through valleys their people had called home for millennia. The newcomers are different, smaller but faster, less muscular but somehow more efficient. They hunt with throwing spears while Neanderthals still thrust theirs by hand. They coordinate in larger groups, communicate more complex strategies. The writing was on the cave wall. Theory 2, we absorbed them. DNA analysis reveals the truth hidden in our blood. Most people of European and Asian descent carry Neanderthal genes. 2 to 4% of our genome belongs to them. This suggests something far more intimate than warfare, interbreeding on a massive scale. Picture those fire-lit encounters again, but imagine them differently. Young Homo sapiens women drawn to the strength and intelligence of Neanderthal men. Hybrid children playing in camps that blend the technologies and cultures of both species. For thousands of years, the line between us and them might have been beautifully, complicatingly blurred. But if this was a love story, why did only one lineage survive? Theory 3, we simply outlasted them. Climate change struck like a slow sword. The ice ages that had shaped Neanderthal evolution for hundreds of thousands of years began to shift in patterns their genes couldn't match. Their high-calorie lifestyle, perfect for hunting mammoth across frozen steppes, became a liability when the world warmed and the great herds vanished. We were newer to Europe, less specialized, more adaptable. When the mammoth disappeared, we learned to fish. When the forest returned, we learned to hunt deer and gather nuts. We were evolutionary generalists in a world that suddenly demanded flexibility above all else. The final Neanderthal might have died of starvation, not violence. Alone in a cave that had once echoed with the laughter of children, listening to the alien sounds of Homo sapiens settlements in the distance and wondering why the world no longer made sense. Or perhaps, and this is the most haunting possibility, all three theories are true. We fought them when we had to. We loved them when we could. And we outlived them because survival is often more about timing than nobility. In that cave in Gibraltar, as the last fire burns down to embers, one story ends and another begins. The Neanderthals disappear into memory and myth, leaving only genetic whispers and stone tools as proof they ever existed. And we inherit an empty world. But they never truly left us. In a laboratory in Leipzig, Germany, a scientist peers into a microscope and sees something impossible. Neanderthal DNA, extracted from bones 40,000 years old, glowing like captured starlight on a computer screen. The code is familiar, yet foreign, recognizably human, but differently human. And then comes the revelation that changes everything. It's not just in the fossils, it's in us. Right now, as you listen to these words, Neanderthal genes are quietly working inside your cells. If your ancestors came from Europe or Asia, 2 to 4% of your DNA belongs to our vanished cousins. Their sequences code for immune system responses that protect you from diseases. Their genes influence how your body processes fat, how tall you grow, even how you respond to pain. The Neanderthals didn't disappear. They became us. In the highlands of Tibet, where oxygen is thin and mountains scrape the sky, people carry Denisovan genes that help them breathe at altitudes that would leave others gasping. Children play at elevations where their Homo sapiens ancestors could never have survived, their blood enriched by genetic gifts from the ghost people of Siberia. In Papua New Guinea and the Philippines, across islands scattered throughout the Pacific, indigenous populations carry up to 6% Denisovan DNA. Their ancestors didn't just encounter these mysterious relatives, they embraced them, literally creating hybrid bloodlines that persist to this day. This is the twist in our story that science fiction writers never imagined. The aliens we absorbed weren't from another planet. They were from another branch of human evolution, and their legacy lives on in our chromosomes like whispered secrets. Sometimes late at night, when you feel a sudden chill or find yourself inexplicably drawn to wild places, when you look at the moon and feel an ancient longing you can't name, perhaps that's them, the ghosts in your blood, stirring with memories encoded in your genes. Every blue-eyed child carries Neanderthal variants. Every person who can digest milk as an adult might thank hybrid ancestry. The shape of your skull, the thickness of your hair, your resistance to certain viruses, all of it potentially influenced by species that officially went extinct tens of thousands of years ago. They're still here, still human, still us. The 8 species didn't all disappear. 7 of them were absorbed into the 8th, creating something new, a hybrid humanity that carries the evolutionary wisdom of multiple lineages. We are not the sole survivors of the human evolutionary tree. We are its living synthesis, a genetic library that preserves the best adaptations of all our relatives. The loneliness was an illusion. We were never truly alone. But if they live on in our genes, why does the world feel so empty? Stand outside tonight and listen to the silence. No Neanderthal songs echo across the valleys. No Denisovan fire ceremonies light up distant mountains. The conversations that once crackled between different kinds of human minds have been reduced to whispers in our DNA. We won. But what exactly did we win? The ability to be the sole inheritors of intelligence on Earth? The right to shape the planet without consultation from other human perspectives? The privilege of making decisions about the future, without input from minds that might have seen solutions we cannot imagine? Perhaps our victory was not a triumph, but a tragedy, the loss of humanity's greatest experiment in diversity of thought. Consider this. Neanderthals had larger brains than we do. Denisovans survived in environments that challenge us even today. Homo Erectus explored and settled continents with Stone Age technology. Each species represented a different approach to consciousness, problem-solving, and survival. What music might Neanderthal minds have created? What scientific insights might have emerged from Denisovan perspectives on high-altitude physics? What philosophies might have flowered in the rich soil of interspecies dialogue? We'll never know. The conversations were cut short 40,000 years ago, leaving us to puzzle out existence with only one type of human mind, our own. Tonight, 7 billion Homo sapiens look up at the same stars our ancestors shared with 7 other human species. We've built cities that glow like constellations and sent signals into space, searching for other intelligent life. But intelligence was never rare on Earth. It was abundant. We simply reduced it to a single voice. The question that haunts the darkness isn't whether we were the strongest, smartest, or luckiest of the 8 human species. The question is what we lost when we became the only one, and whether we're truly the last, or just the next in line. The fire dies to embers. The footsteps fade. In the silence, something stirs. The memory of voices we'll never hear again.